I do remember Scrabble School with fond affection. I'm grateful that Scrabble was a part of my life.
It was fun, when I was a youngster, to come here. It was basically home away from home,
When you say Scrabble School, the first thing pops into my mind is, hey, that's the school that I went to. It was the only black school in the area at the time to come to get your education and whatnot.
The land was given by a gentleman, and the African American community raised the money to build the school. And then later on, the county started, I guess, administering stuff.
This building was so filled with hope and aspiration, to have been erected, and for people who didn't have much, to pull together I think they pulled together half of the money, or maybe more, that it took to put this school in place. It tickles me to see Rappahannock County, on the Rappahannock County schools on the old report cards. Rappahannock County didn't seem to give a damn about the education of black kids then. But the community came together. They built this building. They made this happen. And not just here, but in other places in the county as well.
So the whole process of parents coming together to raise money to match or overmatch the contributions from the Rosenwald Fund created space for their children to attend. Now, some of the other schools are older than Scrabble, and so some of their parents were involved in different ways in other schools. But to have an organized education system, bar none, they would not have had it not been for this particular resource.
We weren't just the little school up here on the hill that the kids got dropped off at every day and no one checked on us or thought about us. The community was actively engaged in enriching our learning.
We had to walk to the main road to catch the bus.
Yeah, we'd have to walk 1.5 miles in the cold, the snow, the rain, the mud, through the cattle fields. One time we saw a bear when
and y'all took off and left me.
Yeah.
The bus would start all the way in the Huntley area. So if you know where Huntley is in reference to Scrabble, and would pick up the students, then come through Sperryville, and then into Scrabble, drop us off here at Scrabble, and then continue into Culpeper in the Rapidan area where George Washington Carver Regional High School was. So you had all of these students on the bus, elementary and high school students.
A constant every morning, the bus that would bring us from home to the school here, it picked up all ages of kids. So that also was picking up the high schoolers, and it was picking up the 7th graders. And some of the 7th grade kids would be actually grown men. Mm-hmm.
The bus would be full.
Yeah.
And standing up on the bus.
And in the winter, the oldest boys on the bus were responsible for getting the fire started in the stove in Miss Austin's room, the stove right here in Miss Williams' room. And when the rest of the folk got here, the school was beginning to get warm, and no one had to stand outside.
When we came in the mornings, in that room over there, it was like a little room, and inside it had like a little, it wasn't a refrigerator, but it was like a cupboard, and you put most of the kids bought bag lunches, and you would put your lunch in that cupboard with your name on it, and they would shut the door. And
all the children brought biscuits for sandwiches, except one boy. Remember Russell Lee?
Yeah.
Russell Lee was raised by a well-known white family, and he was the only child that brought white bread sandwiches.
And Mrs. Austin was a musician, and there was a piano in her room. And so she would play for the devotional, play the songs for the devotional. And then we would have scripture and prayer.
By the way, we were our own custodians.
Yeah, we were.
And that included springtime washing the windows, inside and out. We were our own gardeners. We took care of the flower borders that were on each side of the front door. And that included pulling the weeds, raking leaves in the fall, keeping everything as neat and clean outside as it was inside. No textbooks were left on the floor at the end of the day.
Oh, no.
And at least, I want to say at least every 3 months, these floors would get oiled over the weekend. And the oil had sort of a sweetish smell to it, but they are like they are. These are the original floors because of that preservative that was put on them. We were responsible for this building. There was an element of pride that was instilled in us.
I loved it, and we didn't know until we went to the schools that when they were integrated, the things that we didn't have, so we enjoyed what we did have.
The mothers of the PTA provided hot soup every Wednesday.
We had no cafeteria in the wintertime. Once a week, somebody would make a great big pot of soup. Another parent would make the sandwiches, and then we had a good, big, meal together.
There was a stove, a kitchen stove in that room. We could set our soup there and heat it, but basically the one pot of soup was always served from Ms. Austin's room. And the doors would be open and pushed back, and the younger children would be served first, but it was a lot of fun.
And I like Miss Carol Williams. She would really encourage you to learn and put your best foot forward, so to speak, you know. And it was nice learning from her, because, I mean, you know, she explained everything so you could understand it.
She taught everything: math, history, English. It was a little different, you know, having the same teacher for every grade. But back then, that's what you did.
Miss Carol Williams would use a ruler and hit you in your hand.
She would just scare me. I'm just gonna be. She would just scare me.
I appreciate this school. Like I said, starting out, it wasn't easy for me. My sister was 9 months younger than me, so when I started, 11 months, so when I started school, she did not start with me. And so my first year, and maybe this has something to do with me not remembering so much, was not a good year for me. Looking back, I think now it was probably separation anxiety. I don't know, missing her. She was at home, you know, we were used to being together all the time. And so, like I said, my first year, probably half year, I can just remember just sitting in the desk and just crying. I don't know, the teacher tried to console me. It didn't do good, and I think the second half of the year, she set me beside 2 boys. I'm like, oh, this is not bad. So it was better, but unfortunately, it didn't move me to the next grade. So again, but I remember when I came over to Miss Williams, I don't know, I guess my sister was with me, and not being able to stay out of trouble. I remember doing a lot of writing on that backboard. I will not talk in class.
I was just not good here. I used to cry to come and sit beside him in this classroom. And the last day that I did that, Ms. Williams said, "Where's my switch?" And I never came over here ever again. I never forgot that day. But as long as I was next to him, I was good. I was fine. He would have to take me outside, walk me around the flagpole, bring me back in. I went through the rest of the day good.
I guess mostly I remember this room here, Miss Carol Williams. She was a very religious lady, and she encouraged not only me, but she encouraged all of us to do those things that's pleasing to God. And I guess that helped me along as going through school and all was my roots here at Scrabble School, and mostly Miss Carol Williams.
If you were ever in Miss Carol Williams' class, the one memory that I bet that every one of her students has is that she had high standards and she didn't waver from them. Halfway was not good. It's do your best every day, and she was not shy about showing up at our house and letting Mom and Daddy know. And you know, when Daddy drove the bus, she wasn't shy about coming to the step and saying, "Mr. Cobner, may I speak with you for a minute?"
Everybody would go, "Oh, Lord."
And it was a long bus ride home if Miss Williams had to speak to Daddy about one of us.
They were really good years, and when I found out that we were getting ready to move, oh no, I didn't want to go. You know, I wanted to find somebody to stay up here in Rappahannock with. No, you know, I had to go to Culpeper.
Well, by me being the youngest of the girls, I was like 8, 7 when we moved from up here. So I only went here 3 years, and Ms. Austin was my teacher. But I remember there was a big old pine tree, I think it was pine tree, out front with the big rock under it where we used to play at. And Bobby Dennis and I used to fight every day. Every day. We would always get to arguing about something at recess. And he had an asthma attack one day. And that was the first time I'd ever seen anybody have an asthma attack. And it scared me. So from then on out, I was real nice to him at the recess time, because I thought I was the one that caused him to have the asthma attack. So.
My mother was a teacher as well. My mother taught at Washington Graded School out on Piedmont Avenue, also known back in the day as Blacksburg, because a lot of African Americans did live in that area.
Well, we got off the bus. Of course, we went in the school, and then when the winter came and it got cold, there was this. He was in the James Turner. He was in charge of. We had those big stoves in each room, and he was in charge of coming early to make the fire so we'd be warm. And just a regular day, and the teacher would start with the lowest grade in her and start them on their work, and then the next one and the next one, and that's how we went, you know, and then recess, and then back in school again for the rest of the afternoon, and then on the bus again and off to home.
My getting off the bus is the first thing we would do is run to Mrs. Dern. I don't know if you remember that Mrs. Dern would sell candy, and she would have the window up so we could buy. I'll never forget that.
I could still see Mrs. Butler when she rung that bell to let the class in. You could win in one door of the school, but seemed like everybody was bored, and they went in the doors that came Mrs. Butler's class and Mrs. Body's class.
Mrs. Butler taught 1st through 4th grade, and Ms. Body did the upper grades, 5 through 7. To me, what sticks out to me about Mrs. Butler and Mrs. Body is that they, besides the reading and the writing, they also taught us the word. We learned John 3:16. We learned the Lord's Prayer before it became separate. And that was the main focus of whatever we learned in the beginning. Besides doing the Pledge of Allegiance, we also had to pledge allegiance to the Word. Those two teachers taught us faith. Basically. Yeah.
Well, the discipline that I saw, I never was involved in it, but I do remember if you missed so many spelling words, and I think Ms. Butler, she would take a ruler, and if you missed 12 or 3, you would get these paddles in your hand. I was good, so I didn't get any.
Ms. Body came when I was in the 7th grade. She didn't take any food. She was, as Ms. Body used to say, she gave us, in which she did, tough love.
In Mrs. Body's section, there was a small room that held this huge ice cream machine. I couldn't wait for the recess because I always borrowed a dime from my father to get that ice cream at recess.
Miss Body would sign a couple of people to go into the closet where we had the ice cream cooler. And we had magazines in there, right? So she would assign a couple people to go in and throw away the old magazines and straighten up the magazines. Well, we would be in there eating the ice cream. We would be in the ice cream cooler eating popsicles and throwing the paper and the sticks over behind the cooler so she wouldn't see that we was back there supposed to be cleaning up and eating ice cream.
Mrs. Body became, I guess, one of my favorite teachers because I was very timid and quiet and whatnot. And she got it out of me. Like right now, me sitting here doing this, if there would have been a time I would not have done it. So.
She had a heart of gold. She would do anything for you. She was always helping students. I remember Mom and Mrs. Body helping any student that may have needed food or may have needed clothing, and they were taking their own money to try to help people in the community. Mrs. Body was known for putting on plays.
We should have been Sidney Poitier's as many plays as we had.
The nativity scene, that was a focus point of showcasing what the kids had learned.
That was really a fun time when we had the 2 rooms and we pulled the doors back, and me and Edward did this duet, and she always kind of made our costumes for Christmas, and we had on these white sheets carrying a cross. And I remember after the plays, she would give us a 5-pound bag of candy, nuts, and oranges.
Washington was also known for putting on great what they called socials. And the social would probably be on a Friday or Saturday evening, and you would come out and we would cook hot dogs over a hot plate, and you'd get some potato chips or potato salad and some drinks, and we do have music and dance and do cake walks, and it was just a fun time, a time that people would come together in the community.
A lot of people would bring cakes, donate cakes, and we would have numbers going around the floor, and they played music, and when the music stopped, whatever number you was on, they would call that number and you would win a cake.
All of the schools came to the Washington Graded School to celebrate May Day. And each school had different parts that they would participate in, and the teachers and the students. Then we had the May Day pole, and we wrapped that. It was a lot of fun.
And when I was in school, most of the May Days were held at Washington Graded because we had a big ball diamond, we had more parking space and everything, you know, so most of the time they were there.
May Day was sort of like the Olympics for us.
We used to have wonderful softball games and volleyball games. Oh yeah, and boys always thought that we didn't know how to play baseball, but we showed them up too.
Oh yes.
And in each school would have their own king and queen. And then when you got to the May Day, then the main king and queen were picked.
The year that I was queen, we had a dance at the Washington Community Center. Rachel Ayler and my mother, they did a dance and raised, you know, you charge money at the door. Probably wasn't more than 50 cents.
50 cents.
And sold drinks. But you had to raise money, and whichever school raised the most money, that's how you got to be king and queen for the day.
But the cheerleaders,
Yeah,
remember
Sister Williams.
she was the captain of us. And she taught us the routine.
And I think we wore white shirts and black skirts. And I remember her putting something on our back with glitter on it.
We all dressed in white shirts, Buster shoes, and black pants. Everybody was dressed up identical.
And we had always had plenty of food, and we had a lot of fun at those May Days.
When they integrated the schools, this Scrabble school became a first and second grade school that was integrated, and the kids were bused here. When we were here, the first 3 or 4 years, there was no indoor bathrooms. But then they changed it and they built the bathroom on, and the following years when they integrated, and then so the children came here to school, first and second graders were bused here, and then they came back for lunch, and then but it stayed open for a year or two after we left.
Scrabble School was my absolute favorite place to be. And I did not want to go to the new school when they closed the school down after the year that we were here. But I liked it because it was small, it was intimate, and maybe that's also being 7 years old. It felt safe in the sense that it wasn't huge and big. I think coming here, all of my neighbors were the children that I knew. Those neighbors were people that I knew from the farming community or Dennis's store, so I knew the black kids, not the white kids, when I came here.
Well, you know, school was integrated in, 65 or 66? Oh yeah, it was a big adjustment, real big adjustment. And I don't think we were prepared for that adjustment. You know, it was just like, bang, you're there.
After Burley, when I was getting ready to go to the 10th grade, they decided that all city children had to go to city schools and all county children had to go to county schools. So the 10th grade was actually my first experience with integration.
Virginia, I think, was the last state to integrate. Carver didn't close until '68. Yeah, it was still segregated, yeah. Kids could go to the white high school, but the school didn't officially close until, I think it was '68, yeah.
Well, it was kind of strange. People you didn't know. We had people here we knew that rode the bus Then we had to make new friends, then never changed classes before, go from here to there and all over. Never had to do all of that before. Said they had to learn a whole new routine.
It was very interesting because the first day of school, and riding the bus, we had to ride the bus because we were in Gordonsville, so we rode the bus 18 miles to school, and that was different. But the first day of school, my sister and I sat on the back of the bus, and we had a really bad experience the first day on the bus. We had students that were calling us names and things like that. So the first day on the school bus was not pleasant. And the first day of school, we actually had to go to the principal's office because the bus driver said that we were causing a lot of disturbance on the bus. And it was not our fault because my sister and I sat on the back of the bus and we didn't say anything. All these things were being said to us.
The bus ride was not comfortable, and my mom would say to me, you have to deal with it. Keep your mouth shut. And I was the last one. I didn't know how to keep my mouth shut.
Everybody's new except for the people that we went to school with.
Here. Yeah, because you
Here,
had,
and maybe, like Little Washington.
you had Little Washington,
all the
Flint
segregated
Hill,
schools. We knew
Amosville.
Yeah.
You
Flint.
had, so you
Hockley
made
and
friends, but it was different.
Yeah.
The bus ride was different.
The transition from Little Washington to Rappahannock, to me, I feel like I was well taught, and our parents was loving. They were loving, and they didn't stress the point, you can't do this, or you can't associate with this group. I was happy because most of my friends, who was white, who was black, who was offset, I was in the mainstream. I didn't feel no prejudice. I didn't feel nothing. I was ready for the next stage. It was the most exciting first year because we got over that hump, thanks to Mrs. Butler and Mrs. Biden, who taught us everything we need to know. I can't say for my sister and the other 600 students, and the other 600 students that went before me, but with me, it was a satisfaction that we solved one stage and we was ready to go to another stage.
When I graduated, we had a choice. You either go to Kreiser go to Carver, or go to Rappahannock. And my father and mother decided that I go to Kreiser, and Daddy drove the bus. So he drove the 2 years that I went. I didn't wind up at Rappahannock until 1966, when I had no choice to go.
We insist that this issue is much more than who goes to school with whom. It's a matter of state rights. We believe that if the Supreme Court or the federal government can come down into Virginia and other states and tell us how to conduct our schools, that we are departing a long way from the original idea of state rights, state sovereignty, and individual liberties.
I feel that this hullabaloo over interposition is merely deceiving the public and is creating a false impression of the validity of segregation. Unquestionably, segregation is immoral, it's uneconomic, and it violates our Christian and democratic principles.
American apartheid, because that's what segregation actually was. When you hear these stories, you know that segregation or American apartheid took a toll on everyone, while it could have, and you have blacks here, African American students who attended Scrabble, who had wonderful teachers and wonderful church communities and wonderful parents, siblings, and extended family, who would tell them, despite what larger society is saying about you, that is not who you are. But even despite all of that positivity coming from the community as a whole, the tag, the power sometimes, the messaging that black is inferior for reasons that they could not explain is one that stayed with them, I think, throughout the rest of their lives. They overcame, they dealt with it, but it left an indelible mark. It's there. And those are stories that need to be told.
Carver was wonderful because you were with, I mean, they had all kinds of activities. Being in a class like this, where we have 2 rooms, you go to Carver and you're changing classes. Yeah. And it was fun because we had parties, dances and all
She's rubbing it in. We missed all
there
this.
was the gym. We had all kinds of things to do. They didn't get that.
I was so looking forward to going to Carver.
I was too.
Yes, I started out at Carver. I went to Carver from the 8th to the 10th grade. And so I had the same option that Jerome had about attending school here in the county or continuing at Carver. Mm-hmm. So I elected to come to Rappahannock. And my 2 years there at Rappahannock was a little different. It wasn't the friendliest of atmosphere at times. You had to put up with a lot of, I guess you just call it putting up with rednecks. It was, and I can remember like when it was time to change class and we had, you know how you could walk down the hall, it would be a bunch of boys and they would just line up on either side of the hallway. And then as we will be walking around, they'll throw one out in front of you, try to knock you over and stuff like that. And it's not all. Now it was some, I had some nice experiences there. It was some nice people there. It's just a few that would stir it up.
I went to George Washington Carver for 1 year, and then they integrated the schools, and I went to Rappahannock High for 1 year, and that was a nightmare because we were not wanted there. The teachers didn't even really want to teach you. I can remember Mrs. Kilby, who we sat there in the class when we first integrated the schools, and she said, "Y'all Nigras, y'all sit over there, and when I get done teaching my class, if I have any time, I'll spend it with you." I didn't want to go back to Rappahannock High because the blacks were dropping out right and left, and and I knew that was my potential. If I stayed there, I'd probably wind up dropping out.
Well, being in, I had the difficulty. I had difficulty even at Kreiser, of transitioning from high school, from elementary to high school, because I didn't have that, with Mrs. Body, and like you said, with Miss Body and Miss Bella, you had that extra help. But it was a shock. It was an awakening to go into high school. They thought things you should already know, meaning you wasn't going to get any help. Meaning that if you said anything back to the teacher, you would automatically go into the principal's office, even if you was asking a question. So it was a shock to me.
And some of the students there didn't think that black people had intelligence. And you know, and they would look at me all funny, like when I would be, like, I wouldn't say straight A's, but I would be making higher grades than they did. And they would be wondering, how in the world could that happen? Duh, apply yourself.
One of the reasons it got easier for me was when I sat in class, I realized that black or white, there are some people who are very, very smart. There are some who are like me, average. And so it was really an eye-opener for me. I'm like, okay, I can do this. Because all of them are not A students. They are just like all of us. And that really helped me to get through it, lifted my spirits. I was more relaxed at school, everything when I found all this out.
We all had an upbringing to where we sort of knew
that we had to work.
Yeah, and how you needed to conduct yourself,
in
regardless of who you were around.
Miss Williams and Miss Austin told us, whether you like the teacher or not, you do your best every single day. Because when you leave at the end of the school year, another group of kids are gonna come in. She's gonna tell them the same thing. So do what you have to do and you know, leave a good memory behind.
We don't have a drum roll. So I'll read it to you. Scrabble School, first known as Woodville School, opened in 1922 to serve African Americans in grade 1 through 7. This was the first of 4 schools built in Rappahannock County with funding from Julius Rosenwald, president of Sears, Roebuck and Company, who had joined forces with educator Booker T. Washington in a school building campaign. Between 1917 and 1932, the Rosenwald Fund helped construct about 5,000 schools for black students across the rural South. Encouraged by neighbor Isaiah Wallace, black residents contributed $1,100 towards the $3,225 cost of this building. Scrabble School was closed in 1968 after operating for 1 year on a desegregated basis.
You learn that there are so many things in life that are not offered to you. But if you go out here and try and you work hard and you continue to get up every day, and whatever your goals are, whatever your dreams are, pursue them with everything in you, you can achieve.